Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here with Mike Roberts, and we're talking about business development this morning. And how are you today?
Doing fine, thanks.
Doing fine, good. I wanted to start off with just getting a little bit of your background for the listeners, and just describing maybe your background and maybe how you came into the position that you're in and as a named partner.
Sure. So when I came out of law school, I worked at a big firm in Chicago, and doing all large transactions, and did that for about 5 years, and thought that I would start my own firm, concentrating on the middle market. Thought there was a big void in the middle market because of the need for clients to think they can only go to a large law firm for transactions, sophisticated transactions. And that there was a void for efficient legal services, sophisticated deals in the middle market, and that was our goal. So my partner, who practiced in New York, and I started the firm almost 20 years ago with just that focus, and that's what we've built. And the middle market moves. There's different definitions, but that's been our focus, and it's been successful of sort of concentrated in that market, and I've done the transactions since I came out of law school. That's all I've done. So my background is I'm a CPA also, and then moved into big firm deals, and then onto my own firm with my focus.
Okay. Do you remember a particular point where you were doing great at being a lawyer, and that you sort of realized that you enjoyed getting deals or finding new opportunities or making rain, as they call it? So is there a particular point where you that switch got turned on, or did it happen naturally?
So it happened immediately. As you start to get in business, you obviously know very early, there's necessities so you can pay your bills, but it's always been immediate thrill. I mean, it's immediate satisfaction, and it still is now. I mean, I think about times right now that I'm even in the running for deals, and when I get them, the thrill about getting them.
Let me ask you, there's two types of business development that's happening. One is going to be more passive, meaning you're doing the right things for your clients and the people that are asking you to do things, and referrals are coming in, or the website's working out, or there's things that are kind of happening that are helping you build your practice that are passive. Then there's active, and the active is networking and taking out clients, and maybe it's developing strategic partnerships with bankers or people that you might get referrals from. What are some of the things that you're doing or that you've done to drive your practice up from a more active channel? The activities that you do beyond and above just taking good care of your clients.
So, I mean, there's two things I do, which is networking, and if I sort of talk a bit about that, networking, and I try to do more quality than quantity. Okay. So, in the past, I'd be everywhere. Someone say, attend this, I'm there. Invite me here, I'm there. And what I found was, you don't really exploit those relationships unless you keep them up, and you tend not to. Mm-hmm. So what I've been doing now is just much more networking, but I try to keep it as much networking, but I have more quality. So I focus on certain organizations, professions, people I've met over the years, and dedicate more time to them, because I tend to establish better relationships with people I continue to see over and over and over.
Okay. So with the networking, it sounds like you're like me in the sense that I used to just go to everything, run around, and I'd have thousands of meetings that very few of them actually went anywhere, and you sort of figure out over time, I'm better off going to higher level events or meeting with people that are going to be more in my wheelhouse than just random folks that I happen to meet anywhere.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
And then what do you do to take those relationships further? So if you met a CPA that you thought was excellent or could be a good referral source, what are you doing to make sure that relationship stays managed?
So it's interesting, because no matter how well you establish a relationship, it's not until you work together that someone really knows you can bring value or they can bring value to you. I mean, I can go to lunch with someone twice a year for 5 years. If we don't work together, or we don't have an opportunity together, then the relationship never really develops. So what I do is tend to, I tend to try to meet people a couple times a year at lunch for breakfast, or we tend to see each other at similar events. But until you get an opportunity, you don't really start to really develop that relationship. So, for example, there's an investment banking firm in the city that it's a middle market investment banking firm, and I knew them very well. We would see each other. And then one day, I had a client who wanted to interview investment banking firms, and they had a specific expertise. And they came here, and they got hired. And then a month later, they were doing a deal, and they were supposed to give 3 attorneys' names. They gave mine. I got that deal. Since then, we've now worked together on 4 deals. And it only started because after the first deal, we both felt like, okay, they're good. And they felt like I knew what I was doing, so they felt comfortable introducing me to more and more clients. Same with me. So, I try to maintain relationships, and at some point, someone will say, I gave your name to someone. Look out for this call. But until you start to really work with a network, it's hard to develop a really consistent level of business back and forth.
It's like they know you, but they don't know how you work and how you're going to impact the deals that are happening. And then you obviously, the other side of it is bringing that investment banker, that CPA into the mix to give them a shot at something when it comes around for you, right? So that way you can see how they perform, because that's half the battle. Is you need to know how the people in your kind of small circle are going to, perform. Yeah. Let me ask you this: when you think about, here's how I think about it. I think that there's 3 different types of attorneys. There's the rainmakers, the guys that just naturally can go out and just develop a book of business, and they do it. Then there's the worker bee, and this is the person who just wants to crank out work and just keep their head down and do files and cases and matters. Then there's that middle group that started as a worker bee. They've sort of gotten to the point where, they want to start exploring that middle area between the rainmaker and the worker bee. What type of advice do you give to that middle section to encourage them to go after that? Is there something that you usually will tell them or talk to them about that encourages them to go after that?
Yes, with the attorneys here, I tell them to make that part of their professional career as important as being a worker bee. So if it means every week I'm going to have a lunch with someone, then you do that and you don't miss it. And you put it on your schedule. It's very easy for all of us to say, I can't make it, I'm too busy. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was make that a part of your career as much as working in the office. I'm now going to do this. I'm going to have a pattern to it. I'm going to be consistent. And I'm going to stay with it and be disciplined about it. And then the other big issue I talk about is, because I've had this, you just don't know where it's coming from. I've had the craziest situations where I've ended up getting business from someone because I was at an event and I talked to someone and we started over 2 years having a relationship. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, something comes up. It's not the obvious, okay, I'm going to go to this investment banker, I'm going to talk to them forever, I'll get a deal. It's you just don't know where it's coming from. And so, I always say, be humble and polite and confident about what you do, and you'll establish relationships, and a lot of times from those relationships comes business, but you don't know where they come from.
Okay. From is there something that you see attorneys doing that are obvious mistakes? It could be, well, you mentioned like an excuse, like I'm too busy, which, that may or may not be the case, but are there mistakes that you're observing with attorneys as they're trying to grow practice that they should avoid?
The only mistake, and I don't think I see it as much as I hear it,
okay,
is on generating new business, attorneys talk about themselves too much.
Okay.
That's the only mistake that I really can put my finger on that I've heard again but not seen.
Okay. And I think that's a pretty big one because I think, 2 ears, 1 mouth, you should, same ratio, that type of thing. One of the things that I routinely hear from attorneys is that they want to go out and develop a book, but they just don't know how. It's not taught in law school. They may have a mentor, but the mentor has his own style or her own style. It's hard to kind of mirror someone else's style. Do you have a platform that you suggest for planning or how to execute on growing a business? Obviously, you have some thoughts on networking and speaking or in developing strategic partners. Do you recommend they put a plan together? And if so, is there something that you usually recommend in that run a plan?
Yeah, so it's interesting because if I just take my partners here, we're so different in generating business. I generate a lot of business for the firm. And so many people consider me outside the firm to be antisocial. I'm not the person who walks into a cocktail party on the weekends and everyone knows and talks to. One of my partners is. His Rolodex is huge. And so some attorneys here who want to generate business, I tell them all the time, I'm closer to your personality, which can be fairly reserved, than I am to, for example, my partner, Nick. I don't have this network that I built up over the years that everyone knows me when I walk down the street. And so my plan was, and I tell them again, to be disciplined about what you do in terms of making this part of your professional career. And I don't know if it's a 3-month plan or a 1-month plan that you consistently revise, but for me it's always been trying to build in breakfasts, lunches, something with someone consistently, and following up again with more quality than quantity, and not canceling or changing those things, and keep taking them very seriously, even in situations in which no one likes to walk into a cocktail party, not nobody.
Sure.
I now feel much more comfortable. I dreaded it at the beginning. I still don't love it.
Right.
Okay, I'd rather go home. So I think that it's just a lot of it is fitting your personality to what you do, what you can do, rather than some plan that works for everybody. It's just very individualized.
Yeah. I found that the two things that are missing from the attorneys that I work with and the attorneys I talk to is they typically don't have a sophisticated plan, meaning they may have a list of clients or they may have some people in their Rolodex, but they really haven't formalized a plan of how they're going to approach the market. And then the other thing is the fears they have regarding approaching the market because they don't necessarily have the right processes, moves, whatever you want to call them, to execute. And so there's a concern on both ends. And so they'd rather just bury themselves in the work and say, maybe next year I'll do it next year. And then it takes years and years, and then they realize those years have gone. And
it's too late.
And it's not, well, yeah, in some cases it's too late. In some cases they just realize, wow, it's, I wish I had done this 3-5 years ago.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. But, I think at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is help the attorneys that want help. There's certain attorneys that they're already there, or there's attorneys that are just never going to want to be there, and they're not really workable, right? So you have to look at that middle section, and I think that middle section is growing. Are you seeing a similar trend in the sense that the competitiveness of the legal industry, whether it's in Chicago or another market, that middle sector is kind of blowing up, or are you not seeing that?
For sure. I think particularly with the change in big firm mentality, where you sort of were in there years ago and you just sort of did your job and you could be there 25, 30 years. And there's so much emphasis now on what have you done for me lately. And, I tell attorneys here all the time, whether you're going to be with us for another 3 years or 20 years, your independence from us or from someone else is based on your ability to generate business. And it doesn't mean you're a poor lawyer, because I don't believe those things go together. I don't believe you could be a poor lawyer but take everyone on a golf course and keep generating business. I think it comes back to you. So you have to be a good lawyer, but it's your independence when you're, before you have the 4-bedroom home in Glenview with 3 kids in school, and now you're stuck, right? Now you're at a firm where, they're paying your salary, you need this salary, but you don't have any independence at all. Mm-hmm. What happens if one day something happens at that firm, or they make a decision we're going to now let senior people go. It's something I never want to see.
Right,
worst
right.
case.
Sure. Okay. Last question. Where do you see things going next 5 to 10 years, and what should attorneys be thinking about and to maintain, a successful career in the legal industry?
Well, I mean, I'm just one little person that does this, but I can tell you from experience, I think there's a bigger interest in law firm teams rather than brand names. And what I mean by that is I think there's more opportunities for firms like mine going forward. It is not just the efficiency of costs, but it's also a lean team. So I just did a deal with a very large international firm. They had 8 attorneys spread throughout the deal. I had 3, myself and 2 others. It was efficient. It was quicker. So I think, clients are going to look. Certain deals are going to end up at a big name brand firm because they have to. Mm-hmm. But there is a lot more opportunity for that middle sector because clients, I think, are starting to get more aware that it's not necessarily the brand name, but it's who you're using and what their team is about. So I think there's more opportunity. I think it's going to keep happening. The other thing is, I don't know how we're not going to get to some type of alternative billing for everybody. I mean, the billable hours, the idea of billable hours, the idea of billable rates. I mean, I would love to figure out a way that works for my firm because I think it'd be a huge seller. I just haven't been able to do it yet, but I've been thinking about it a lot. Because at the end of the day, I look at a bill and I say, is it fair? That's what I do. And because I'm my own firm, I'll cut it back if I don't think it's fair. And I don't care what the hours were, and I don't care what the rate was. I've done this a long time. I know what a fair bill is. I make it fair. And I'm kind of doing alternative billing, but after the fact, so I can't market it. I mean, people have to trust that I'll do the right thing.
Right.
But I think that the chance for middle market firms, boutique firms, in the real area of expertise is going to be important. And I think we're all, to be really successful, every direction I see going is that you've got to have some alternative billing method.
Okay. So between, being kind of sleek and small and having a good name, not necessarily a name brand like a firm, but having a good name in the marketplace, and then on top of that having some flexibility within your billing structure so that people can feel like they're getting more value for what you're doing. Those are kind of key elements you see in the future. Well, today, but I think moving into the future for sure.
I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I think we've had a great dialogue around what's sort of happening in the legal industry, where it's going, and then also regarding how to build a book of business and get some thoughts around that. I want to thank you, and we'll keep on trucking along.
Great. My pleasure.
Thank you.